Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. A lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is so hard. There's a lot of things that can tear you apart. I know the road sometimes feel lonely, but remember you're not the one and only. There's always someone there to help you, a helping hand to pull you through. There's only one thing you should do: take my hand and join the Love and Life crew. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then let love and life guide you.
Good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Well, news on my side is that I have just moved house, and believe me, it has been an incredibly traumatic experience. You have absolutely no idea what it's like moving house in Brisbane, Australia. I just got my internet set up today after it's been down for about a week. Yeah, that's just part of the story. Believe me, it gets a lot worse. But we're not here to talk about me, and we're not here to talk about the issues that I've been facing in the last week. We're here to talk about a very important subject. Now, before I actually get into it, I just want to say, make it clear, that Dawie Roodt has actually set up a Teams meeting with me. I've got the Teams ready to go. It's after 8 p.m. now, and he hasn't actually joined the meeting. So I'm just going to kick off and discuss the subject regarding what's happening in the world today and the global economy as it is. And please do put your comments in the side chat. Now, I've got a comment here from Nat saying that Marlena can't get on the chat. Oh, there she is. Hi, Marlena. Good to see you here. Well, she's on now. That's good to see. All right. What I'm going to start off with, guys, is just a little bit of history when it comes to gold production across the world. And I want you to concentrate on, I'm just going to go to the screen now. I want you to concentrate on this figure here. This figure here. That's the year. You'll notice South Africa, incredibly dominant when it comes to gold production. Next in line was Russia, and so it goes on. But after 1994, watch what happens to gold, because this is one of the subjects I wanted to talk to Dawie about. And just with regards to Dawie, in his interest, I should mention that we actually scheduled this Teams meeting 6 weeks ago, I guess. Marlena, was it about 6 weeks ago? Yeah, okay. Marlena, well, we'll fly by the seat of our pants. All right, so let's have a look at what happened to South Africa's gold production since 1976. And this is a very, very important issue. Here we go. Well, you can see that South Africa just kind of fell off the map, didn't it? It's quite incredible when you look at that. But this brings us to a really, really important issue, which I was hoping to talk to Dawie about. And in fact, I'm going to just show you another image which kind of puts this all in perspective. Okay, so 200 years of global production, let's have a look at that. You'll see that in this area between about 1900 through to the early 2000s, guess who was the biggest producer of gold? South Africa. Look at that yellow piece. That was gold produced in South Africa. In the 1960s, the 1970s, look how much gold was produced in South Africa. That's this area here. No wonder the rand was stronger than the US dollar. But this in itself is problematic, and I'll explain to you why. Because if we have a look at who were the beneficiaries of all that gold, believe me, it was not your average person living in South Africa. You know, you hear the the guys in the EFF talking about white monopoly capital and all this sort of stuff, and yeah, we can boo-hoo that, but they've actually got a point in a way, because what happened was during the Boer War, which only happened because gold had been found on the Witwatersrand. And guess what? The ultra-wealthy, they were talking about Queen Victoria and the Rothschilds, what they wanted to do was to capture all that gold and take it out of the country. Which brings me to one of the key points I was hoping to speak to Dawie about. Now, that key point is that there is a country right up there in the European Union, it's called Norway, where they've set up a sovereign fund. And 78% of the revenues of oil and gas has been put into the sovereign fund that actually goes back to supporting people living in Norway. And we're going to have a look at a couple of videos now which talk about how that fund has basically secured the future of every person in that country, from the poorest person all the way to the wealthiest person. It's not all gone into the pockets of, the companies and the corporates and the big financiers. So let's have a look at just an intro. Then we'll have a look at a discussion with Trump, with the president of Norway, talking about the Norwegian sovereign fund and how much money they've got on it because it hasn't been soaked out of the country. Now consider the amount of gold that's been taken out of South Africa by companies like Anglo-American, making people like Harry Oppenheimer incredibly wealthy, but not so good for the rest of the country. Anyway, let's have a look at this first video. I'll just get it up. Give me a second. Okay.
Australia has been lucky once.
Okay, I know they're talking about Australia here, but Australia's in the same boat because we have an incredible wealth of minerals in the country. But right now, iron ore, for example, is in the hands of one woman, Mrs. Hancock, who has got billions of dollars in her pocket from sales of iron ore to China, but nothing comes back to the rest of the community except for a very small tax. So let's watch that video and we'll see how countries have been stripped of their assets, which happened to South Africa during the period from 1902, when the British took over the Transvaal and the Free State, and they basically cleaned out all the gold. Okay, let's go to that.
Long-term strategy. Australia has been dealt a winning hand. And if you're this lucky with the sheer abundance of natural resources, it would be illogical not to look for ways to sustainably mine these resources and to turn them into a force for good. But here's the problem. This is the Economic Complexity Index. On the top, we find highly complex economies like Japan and Switzerland. If we scroll all the way down, we find Australia at place 82 between Kenya and Sri Lanka. This is the lowest of any developed country, and this is primarily credited to their reliance on mineral exports. The mining boom contributed to Australia's lack of economic diversity, and I'll add one more. The shareholders are primarily foreign. These mines are for 83% foreign owned. All these billions of dollars it creates in revenue, for a large part, isn't even going to Australian citizens or companies. And the profits that remain in the country are not equitably shared. If we just look at the 17% that remained in the country, 50% of these profits went to Australians who made over $250,000 per year, and 25% went to those making over $1 million per year. A con is that the rich profit the most, but this needs to be seen in context. It's true that the richest Australians are eating an increasingly large portion of the pie, especially in iron ore mining. But the middle class and bottom 10% of earners are also seeing their incomes rise faster than in almost any other developed country. The mining sector likes to emphasize that it raises overall incomes. Those who campaign against this sector say that the rich profit the most. Both are true. It leads to more inequality, but everybody is better off in the end. This is a major opportunity. Mining today is generating insane amounts of revenue, but they are a very poor taxpayer. The effective corporate tax rate in Australia is 21%, but mining is paying just 14%. Norway, for example, taxes its oil and gas at 78%. This helped Norway build the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, and today you can see a clear correlation between how much this sector generates in revenue and how much their government makes through all different kinds of taxes. But in Australia, the government seems to be cutting itself short. While the sector experienced a massive revenue boost, the Australian government saw its revenues flatline. Just imagine the opportunity that Australia missed out on if it had adopted a similar strategy as Norway. Australia has such abundant natural resources, but much of this goes to foreign shareholders and Australia's richest people. Mining is a...
All right, so you can get the gist of what we're talking about here. Now, I've also come across this video clip which I'm going to play, which is Donald Trump meeting with the Norwegian president, and just give me a second, I'm just going to turn that sound off while I get to the right spot. But he's actually asked about this sovereign fund that Norway's got. Now remember, that sovereign fund is funded by the revenues of oil and gas. So there is a way that countries can actually say to oil and gas companies, all right, you can go and mine our reserves, but we're going to charge you a nearly 80% tax on revenue. And that tax is going to go into a sovereign fund to help our citizens, okay? Now, I'm going to play you that clip and then we'll just talk about that. Here we go.
He's done a great job. Yeah.
Would you like an invitation to visit the king?
Absolutely. You get me that invitation.
I just told the president he's welcome to visit Norway.
President Trump, first point harm.
You said before that you like the Norwegian Petroleum Fund, and I'm wondering if that has been up for discussion today, the way that we have structured our money and whether...
Well, this fund was created in the late 1990s to save for future generations the income from oil and gas. Norwegians should continue to work as hard, dedicated, innovate and move forward despite having these incomes, which we happen to be in the period or history where we can harvest, and we have transferred that into investments, half of them, by the way, here in the United States. So I think this is a model which we have been able to explore. If we can share experiences, and we do with our colleagues in the US, you never copy this one-to-one, but there can be techniques and way of working that we have used in organizing our fund. Jens Stoltenberg was the finance minister when the first dollar entered that fund. So he is a safe hand to have as a finance minister today. What do you say?
No, and as you said, Mr. Prime Minister, we are ready to sit down with the US to also work with them on if they want to establish a sovereign wealth fund, because we have a good experience with our fund. And I think that one example of how we work together with the United States is that half of the fund, close to $1 trillion US, are invested in the United States, mainly in equity, but also some in fixed income, including government bonds. So this is an expression of trust in the United States, expressed by the strong investment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Then just briefly on Ukraine, since it was mentioned, we had a very good and extensive discussion about Ukraine, the path forward to peace. And as the Prime Minister said, we commend the US for pushing forward to try to find a negotiated solution. At the same time, we need to continue to support Ukraine, and therefore I'm proud that Norway has actually tripled the military support to Ukraine. And this year we will allocate close to $8 billion to Ukraine. That will strengthen them and also their hand on the negotiating table.
If I may add to that, if there's a peace, and there will be a peace, we have a common responsibility in securing democratic Ukraine for the future. And the best security guarantee they can have is the ability to defend themselves. And we are investing in that.
Mr. Prime Minister, if I may, as it relates to tariffs, Mr. President, when you unveiled your reciprocal tariff...
All right. Now, we're really not interested in tariffs at this stage. We just want to get into this whole thing about asset stripping, which has happened in huge ways in South Africa. And obviously there's no bigger example of that than the way gold was plundered. And when Julius Malema talks about white monopoly capital, what he should actually be talking about is how these corporate entities have basically drained South Africa of its natural assets. That's where he's got it wrong. It's not your white population. They're the victims as much as anybody else in South Africa. And I think this is something that needs to be raised in dialogue in South Africa. If you take the Norwegian experience, they charge 78% of the revenue received from oil and gas. They've now got $2 trillion sovereign fund. That's again, that's US dollars, $2 trillion since the 1990s. That's something like 30 years. Okay, I've just got a comment on Teams that Dawie has not responded to your request to join. Please try again. So I'm just going to click join. And as I'd say, look, I'm not blaming Dawie. We set up this meeting a long time ago, and you know, it's. Okay, I'm just trying to connect. It says, "Hi, Scott Bolson, you're early. The organizer will let you in when the meeting starts." What a shame. I used to enjoy Skype, which is no longer really working properly. But let's have a look at what is happening to gold today. Because people don't realize how incredibly gold has just solidified itself as the top asset or investment. So I'm going to show you a few charts and images just to underscore what I'm talking about. And when we talk about gold, just be aware we're talking about real money. We aren't talking about some nebulous thing like investing in toys or whatever. This is the whole basis of money. And one of the other areas I wanted to discuss with Dawie is why the gold price has shot up so dramatically. So let's have a look at that. Here we go. Okay, I'm just going to move forward beyond that one. Okay, before we look at gold, let's have a look at silver. This is a chart of silver from 1920, down here, right up to, well, it's getting close to, this is like 2023. The silver price today is up here. It's over $30 US dollars per ounce. It actually touched 35 US dollars, which is interesting because back in 1971, when President Nixon took America off the gold standard, an ounce of gold was worth $35. Today, as you will see next, it's $3,500. There you go. There's your chart. And there are three very important stages of what impacted gold and silver. First of all was back in 1930 during the Great Depression. Infamously, the President of the US confiscated gold in the USA. That people were paid something like 25 US dollars in paper for their gold. And you can see what happened to the gold price. And then in 1933, it shot up to $35 per ounce, where it stayed all this time, right up to 1971. And during this time, you had various treaties signed. The US dollar became the global currency. And because Nixon was getting very concerned about the demands for repatriation of gold against US debt, he took the US dollar off the gold standard. That was in 1971. And that's when the price of gold was $35 per ounce. Okay, that's 54 years ago. And if you follow the price of gold chart, you've got here 1979, 1980, where Bunker Hunt tried to corner the silver market. You can see the price of gold went up to about 900 US dollars per ounce. Now, if you take the fact that the silver market, or the silver price on COMEX, where it had been cornered by Bunker Hunt, went up to 50 US dollars per ounce, that meant for every 1 ounce of silver, 1 ounce of gold, you could buy 18 ounces of silver, or inversely, for every 18 ounces of silver, that's 1/8, not 80, 1/8 ounces of silver, you could buy 1 ounce of gold. That's been about the lowest proportion that's ever been achieved, and it happened because the COMEX is a Ponzi scheme. And we'll get onto fiat money in a second. But what happens with COMEX is that because it's all paper trades and not actual physical gold and physical silver, the suggestion has been made that for every 100 ounces of paper silver traded on the COMEX, there's only 1 ounce of real physical silver. And the market is controlled by the big banks. The Fed Reserve gets in there, all the big banks get in there. Now, what's happening is that the actual price of silver and gold have become disconnected. I talked about when Bunker Hunt tried to corner the silver market, it was like 18 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. Today, it's closer to 100 ounces of silver to 1 ounce per gold. And these are the very close to the current prices. Last couple of weeks ago, gold hit $3,500 US dollars per ounce, and silver $35 per ounce, which, when you take the current ratio of over 100 to 1, two things to point out here. The first is that silver is incredibly undervalued compared to its historic comparison, if you have a look over here. The other thing is that 1 ounce of silver today is worth what gold was back in 1971. Think about it. 100 to 1. And here it is. US dollar to gold price degradation of 99% in 54 years. That means for every US dollar in 1971, you actually have today, putting that same US dollar out, the value of 1 cent. Because gold follows, or gold basically offsets inflation. So you can see how incredibly valuable gold is, and with South Africa being the primary producer of gold for all those key years, you can see how the country was completely rorted, completely stripped of its assets. It is absolutely extraordinary what happened. Now, what is the alternative to precious metals, silver and gold? Well, of course, we all know we use this stuff called fiat money, and a classic example of what has always happened to fiat money is the Zim dollar. And just in case you didn't know, I'm a trillionaire. 10 trillion dollars. That's a Zim dollar note. $100 trillion. So there you go. If you got one of those notes, you can pick them up for about 10 cents, but it just shows you how fiat money, which is the money you have in your bank account right now, is a Ponzi scheme. There's nothing backing it except debt. And I just want to show you a couple more images here related to what I'm talking about. Here we go. And it's such a shame Dawie's not here, because he never talks about gold, and he never, for some reason. But this is interest on US debt will exceed $1 trillion US dollars in 2026. There's the net interest on the debt that they owe the Fed Reserve and to people who hold the bonds. As you can see, it's just going through the roof. Here's Medicare, that's the health fund in America. Interest is higher than Medicare. Interest payments are higher than the amount they pay for defense and Medicaid. The only thing that's higher than interest in the tax area is Social Security. So what this means, in effect, is that countries are becoming burdened with interest debt on government spending. And that's why taxes are going up. And I come back to the point I raised at the very start, is if you take Norwegian sovereign fund, they've got trillions of dollars now in their sovereign fund from revenue from oil and gas. What about South Africa? All that gold that went offshore? Well, it's gone. It's gone. South Africa was stolen blind. And right now Australia is being stolen blind, because if every country introduced a sovereign fund like Norway did and put a large percentage of the revenue into that for the people, you know, there would be far more equity in the distribution of assets around the world. But of course, that's not allowed to happen. Now guys, once again, for those who've just joined us, I do apologize that Dawie Roodt is not here. Hang on. Wants to manage your windows. Allow. Okay, sorry, I'm just checking Teams, but no, he must have had some emergency come up. I'm sure he would have been here otherwise. All right, so let's continue with our images. I showed you that little video clip of how South Africa has just fallen off the cliff when it comes to being the biggest gold producer in the last 15, 20 years. This is South Africa's gold production from 1990 to 2024. And you can see how from 160,000 tons, kilograms of gold per year, it's now dropped down to around about 100,000. So it's lost about 50% of its gold production, which is understandable seeing that you've got the ANC running the show. Let's have a look at the next one. Now, this is an area that, again, sorry, I'll just go back to that chart because I don't think I actually had it on. Let me just go back one. Okay, so that's the one I wanted to show you about South Africa's gold production from 1990 to 2024. You can see 2013, 160,000 kilos per year, down to 2024 being about 100,000 kilos per year. Alright, so let's have a look at the next chart. This is something that I really did want to get into with Dawie. And again, I apologize he's not here. Obviously something's happened. But there are different types of money, and this is something that people do not understand. There is MO money, there's M1 money, there's M2 money, and there's M3 money. And when I explain to you the difference between the different types, you will understand why some sorts of money is secure and why other sorts of money is not secure. So for example, if you take the banknotes that you've got in your hand or the coins that you've got in your pocket, they are the most secure form of money because they are guaranteed by, they are cash and they're guaranteed by your government. Okay, so just understand that banknotes and coin are backed by your government. Not so good when it comes to the money in your bank account. You know, you go to your mobile phone and you click on Capitec. Oh, I've got 2,000 rands sitting in there. Well, no you don't actually, because it's a Ponzi scheme. That 2,000 rand could disappear tomorrow. Unlike the banknotes and coin in your pocket, which you could still go to the store with, that Ponzi scheme money, which is the digital money, is basically backed by nothing but debt. Yeah, debt. There's nothing backing it. It's someone else's debt that you are actually having in your bank account. You're actually a creditor. Although you don't get paid any interest, or very little, the bank is the one that's really hitting the big time. So understand that banknotes and bank coin are far more secure than the money sitting in your bank account. For example, let's say a South African bank like Standard Bank went belly up, went bankrupt, you would lose everything. All the money in your bank account would just disappear overnight. You'd get up in the morning and you'd hear on SABC that say, hey guys, I'm sorry, but Standard Bank went belly up, and if you had any money in there, it's gone. It's gone. That's not a joke, that's the reality of the situation. So let's have a look at the other types of money, because they are very, very different. So, types of money in the banking system. Now, all these different levels reflect debt, except for MO, which is paper money and coin currency in circulation, the one at the bottom. That money there is the most secure. As you go higher, it becomes less and less secure. So from M1 money going up, if the bank providing that goes bankrupt, you've lost all your money. Which is why I keep very, very little cash in the bank, because the financial system right now is in a very, very poor state of affairs. And we saw what happened in 2007 and 2008, where trillions of dollars were just created out of fresh air to save the banking system. Remember that? That only happened, 15 years ago, and it's very close to happening again. So all these types of investments that Dawie talks about, which people should be getting into, are very, very sus. They're not secure. Now, there's one type of money that's not mentioned here, which is actually the whole foundation of money in the banking system, and that is gold and silver. The difference between gold and silver and all these different grades of money that you see up here is the fact that gold and silver have no counterparty risk. And when I say gold and silver have no counterparty risk, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. The important thing if you're going to buy gold and silver is that you actually own the silver. You actually have it in your hands. This is a kilo of silver. It's actually celebrating the rugby 1985 World Cup. Beautiful piece. This today is worth about $1,800 US. Okay, that's its price. And here I've got a little 1 ounce silver, which is worth about $35 US, which was what an ounce of gold was worth back in 1971. Think about that. So the message I'm putting across here, guys, is that the whole financial system that we use today is a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's not real money. The taxation you pay goes in to pay largely interest paid in that Ponzi scheme to the central banks. So, who gets that money? Well, believe me, it doesn't go to help the shareholder. It doesn't go to help the people in the country. It goes to the guys at the top, same old, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the people who control the financial system. They are living off the interest on all the debt that people are paying through this Ponzi scheme known as fiat money. That's why when gold and silver go up as fast as they have in the last few months, I mean, as I said, gold is at $3,500 this year, which is extraordinary. That's US dollars. When we compare back in, it's about 2020, during COVID. I remember I had a live stream and we were talking about money back then. And I said to people, look, now would be a great time to invest in gold and silver. And I see Marlena's here, she would remember this time. And several people did. They put some money into gold and silver. Back then, an ounce of gold in rand terms was 20,000 rand, an ounce of gold. You know what it is today? Let me show you. You'll fall off your chair when you see this. Okay, let me just put this chart up. This is the current live price of gold. Here we go. Today, you would pay over 60,000 rand for 1 ounce of gold. Now remember, 5 years ago, an ounce of gold was 20,000 rand. So for those people, it's gone up 640 Rand just today, 1%. Silver, well, silver hasn't gone up as much, but you'll see it's over 100 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold, which is way out of whack. So silver is a great investment to get into right now. But this is where gold hit $3,500 per ounce a few weeks ago. So my message to you guys is that there are two things that are happening here. And again, I apologize that Dawie Roodt is not here. He did say he actually set up the Teams meeting. But one of the things I wanted to talk to Dawie about is why there's such an infatuation with things like fiat money and stocks and shares and all this sort of stuff, when the whole basis of what we're talking about is a Ponzi scheme. We talk about Louis Liebenberg, for example, with his Ponzi scheme. Well, the whole financial system is a Ponzi scheme. It's much worse than what Louis Liebenberg did, because it touches everybody, which is why I have my assets in physical precious metals, and I keep my cash, the actual money, in my hand. You get nothing for it in the bank anyway. So there are other investment options that they talk about, and I just want to touch on one of those. And again, this is something I wanted to talk to Dawie about, but let's talk about crypto, okay? Now these are the live crypto prices right now on the market. You see Bitcoin is running at $103,000 per coin. 18 months ago it was 17,000 US dollars per coin. So it's gone up about 400% in that short period of time. But here's the problem when it comes to Bitcoin and, for example, Ethereum, etc., etc., etc. Here's the problem. You might have heard that about a week ago Spain and Portugal went offline. In other words, all their power went down. There was no electricity. People got stuck. You saw videos of people standing outside trains in the middle of the bush because the trains depended on power. Guess what else depends on power? Cryptocurrencies. If you don't have electricity, you might have 5 Bitcoin worth, let's say, $500,000 US, but you can't touch them because you can't access the internet. It's all dependent on the internet. And one of the most interesting comments made during the reports of what happened in Portugal and Spain was that people with their credit cards and with their plastic debit cards couldn't buy anything because there was no power. The machines didn't work. The only way you could actually buy a cup of coffee or something like that was through cash. You know, that little piece of paper note in your hand, the money in your hand, that's the only way you could actually trade during the downtime with power. So there's a huge problem when it comes to where the world is going, because you might have heard of central bank digital currency, which is the next cab off the rank. We in Australia now have the digital ID. I've not signed up for it, and because of that I can't access Centrelink, because they've now said unless you set up your own digital ID you can't get onto Centrelink, which obviously pays pensions and stuff like that. So they're trying to force people into this whole digital world, and part of that is once they've got, rather like with COVID, with the COVID vax, once they've got most people onto it, then they're going to bring in this new currency called the central bank digital currency, which, funnily enough, Trump in America has banned. He said we are not going to have a central bank digital currency. So when we talk about money, we're talking about an evolution. When we go back to the very first form of money, it was physical silver, physical gold, with no counterparty risks. You hold that coin in your hand, there's the asset, it's that coin in your hand. It's not it's not someone else's debt, like paper money. That's where the counterparty risk comes in, because debt on the fiat currency, like the old Zim money, that means that it's worthless. It's a Ponzi. It's a Ponzi scheme. Just understand that. All right. So I've been able to discuss the issues I wanted to run past Dawie, but unfortunately I haven't been able to get his perspective on these things. But guys, I do apologize. I was looking forward to having this discussion with Dawie, but I hope what I've spoken about today makes sense. I hope you can understand why, money today is a Ponzi scheme. And I'm just going to get up something here. Give me a second. There we go. Okay, I got it. All right. All right, let's just see. Are there any questions that people have got? Hi, Alta. Good to see you here. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Once again, I apologize, but there's nothing I can do about it. Alright, take care, have a great evening, and look, I'm not sure when I'll be doing the next live stream. My vision is not good at all. And I'm going to go out with one of our theme songs, okay? And I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. Because that sovereign fund that they've got in Norway just reflects what should have happened in South Africa and Australia. And it just shows how countries have been stripped blind. Okay. Here we go. Take care. Bye for now.
You can stick your new world order up your arse. You can stick your new world order up your arse. You can stick your new world order where the sun don't shine but oughta. Stick your new world order up your arse. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. Queen will be arrested in a dressing gown. The Queen will be arrested in a dressing gown. The Queen will be arrested in a, 'cause she is such a sinner. She'll be arrested in a dressing gown. You can stick your corporation up your arse. You can stick your corporation up your arse. You can stick your corporation. We're a free and sovereign nation. Stick your corporation up your arse. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails and their evil plan fails. Blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. You can stick your mainstream media up your arse. You can stick your mainstream media up your arse. You can stick your mainstream media, 'cause the people we don't need ya. Stick your mainstream media up your arse. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. Stick your poison vaccines up your arse. You You can stick your poison vaccines up your arse. You can stick your poison vaccines, they cause so much disease. Stick your poison vaccines up your arse. You can stick your vaccine passports up your arse. You can stick the vaccine passports up your arse. You can stick the vaccine passport, we'll see you in the High Court. Stick your vaccine passports up your arse. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 90. Together we are mighty. We are 99%. You can stick your fucking drilling up your arse. You can stick your TV programs up your arse. You can stick your GMO foods. We ain't gonna go to school. Stick your Georgia Guidestones up your arse. Oh, I'd rather be a human than a slave. Oh, I'd rather be a human than a slave. Oh, I'd rather be a human. And don't you know that you can rather be a human than a slave? Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 90. Together we are mighty. We are 99%. You can stick your new world order up your arse. You can stick your new world order up your arse. You can stick your new world order where the sun don't shine but also stick your new world order up your arse. You can stick your great reset up your arse. You can stick your great reset up your arse. You can stick your great reset, cause the people they don't know yet. Stick your great reset up your arse. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 90. Together we are mighty. We are 99%. And you can stick your central banking up your arse. You can stick your central banking up your arse. You can stick your central banking. The economy is tanking. Stick your central banking up your arse. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%.